What would you do if you found out you were royalty but telling the truth might destroy everything? The heavy oak door closed behind Elena with a muted thud that echoed like a judge's gavel sentencing her to exile within her own bloodline. The warmth of the banquet hall was replaced by the cold shadows of her chamber, walls adorned with faded tapestries whispering forgotten tales of nobility and quiet despair. A single candle flickered weakly on the windowsill, casting trembling shadows that stretched and swayed, mirroring the turmoil within Elena's heart. She stood motionless, her alabaster skin bathed in the pale glow, her raven hair cascading like a dark waterfall down her back. Her worn, humble garments felt heavier now as if the very fabric had absorbed the scorn and derision she faced moments ago. She clenched the pendant of the simple necklace hanging low around her neck, an heirloom heavy with silence and secrets. The silence engulfed her, thick and suffocating, broken only by the distant sounds of the distant banquet, the laughter, the clinking of goblets, the muffled strains of a lute playing mocking tunes. Yet here, in solitude, those jubilant sounds were cruel reminders of her status as shadow among light, a claimant to nothing, and feared by many. Her breaths were shallow, uneven, as her mind wrestled with a tidal wave of shame and confusion. Faces flashed Duke Alaric's sneering countenance, the noble lord's disdain, the guest's whispers that pierced deeper than any sword. Illegitimate, they murmured, an echo dragging through her spirit like a shroud. Elena's hands trembled as she reached to touch the worn charm around her neck, the cool metal a tether to a lineage she was forbidden to claim openly. This necklace, simple yet sacred, held whispers of her mother's love and a secret truth that both shielded and chained her. She sank onto the edge of her modest bed, the embroidered quilt cold beneath her, unfamiliar and unwelcoming. Her gaze fixed on the moonlight leaking through the narrow window, the silver beams an intimate caress against the shadowed walls. Moonlight, her sole ally, promised revelation and solace in quiet hours. Tears welled, unbidden and hot, tracing paths down cheeks pale as alabaster. Yet beneath the tears, a fragile ember glowed, a subtle defiance born from years of silent watchfulness and longing. She was more than the cruel labels whispered tonight. She was a daughter of the emperor, cloaked not only in humility but nobility. Her heart ached with the weight of invisibility but pulsed faintly with hope, a yearning for recognition, for justice, for a place not in the shadows but bathed in truth's radiant light. The quiet minutes passed, tension knotting and untying within her, as she pressed the necklace tightly against her palm, feeling the steady rhythm of a heartbeat intertwined with hers of blood, identity, and untold stories. Then, a sudden sound, the delicate rustle of parchment sliding against the wooden floor. Elena's eyes sharpened, breath held captive as her gaze landed on a folded note left beside her bed, unmarked, mysterious. Her fingers hesitated, then reached for the letter, the cool paper whispering promises of secrets yet to unfold, of dangers faced, and strength yet to be claimed. A flicker of determination cut through her despair as Elena unfolded the letter, ink tracing the edges of a destiny waiting in the moonlight's embrace. The scene closed on her illuminated face, a portrait of vulnerability, resilience, and the first tremors of awakening beneath the weight of a hidden crown. The chamber lay cloaked in shadow, the flickering candlelight casting anxious shapes against the cold stone walls. Elena sat at the slender wooden table, her hands trembling slightly as she unfolded the brittle parchment her fingers had just discovered beneath the folds of her cloak. The letter was old, edges frayed, ink faded but still legible. It bore her mother's handwriting, a delicate script marked by years of secrecy and sorrow. The moonlight filtered through the high-arched window, pooling pale silver on the letter and her pale skin, illuminating the delicate worn necklace at her throat, a silent guardian of the truth it concealed. She traced the pendant gently, the weight of the secret it held pressing upon her heart. Her breath caught as the words unveiled themselves, whispering of hidden lineage, forbidden love, and a peril that shadowed her very existence. The letter spoke of danger, of shadows lurking within the very court she had been cast out from, and of a destiny tangled with the fate of the empire itself. Outside, The soft rustle of the palace night stirs the distant call of an owl, the gentle sigh of the wind through the rose garden where blossoms bloomed under the moon's gaze, delicate and untouchable. Alina's mind painted vivid images of the rose garden, a symbol of fragile beauty and forbidden passion, much like the truth now unfolding before her. She rose, the letter clasped tight, heart pounding with a mixture of dread and unexpected courage. A fierce determination ignited within her, the ember of resilience glowing against the encroaching darkness. A sudden sound at the door startled her footsteps, slow, deliberate. For a moment, hesitation gripped her, the old fears clawing their way up. The door creaked open to reveal a shadowed figure, eyes warm with silent understanding. No words were spoken, none were needed. The subtle nod shared between them was a pact forged in the quiet, a promise of alliance against the storm. Elena wrapped the letter close to her chest, then turned away from the solitary candle, stepping towards the moonlit window. The night sky above was vast and endless, the stars shimmering like scattered jewels, eternal beacons guiding her path. From the depths of shame and doubt, something new emerged. A quiet, unyielding resolve to uncover her past, to seize her rightful place, and to challenge the dark forces threatening the throne and her very life. The moonlight deepened, bathing her figure in silver as the camera pulled back, leaving Elena poised at the precipice of revelation and rebellion, a secret daughter ready to step into the light and change the tide of her fate. The chamber smelled of old parchment and softened candle wax, a quiet refuge from the storm raging within Elena's mind and beyond the palace walls. The moonlight sliced through the narrow window, casting silver shafts along the rugs and trembling shadows that played upon the stone. The worn necklace rested cold and smooth in her palm, a tangible tether to the secret she now carried, more fragile yet more powerful than any sword in the Emperor's armory. Elena moved cautiously through the labyrinthine corridors of the palace, the echo of her soft footsteps and the faint rustle of her plain gown swallowed by the vastness of marble and oak. The grandeur of the court contrasted starkly with her humble appearance, yet within her veins surged a noble bloodline waiting to be embraced. Her first step toward the truth was a whispered conversation, stolen moments hidden behind velvet curtains in a forgotten library wing. The flickering candlelight revealed faces, trusted eyes filled with cautious hope, those willing to risk peril for the promise of justice. A young scribe, barely more than a boy, pressed into her hands a faded map, edges tattered and worn like the traces of her lineage. "The rose garden," he whispered, eyes darting nervously to the door. "There is where the forbidden meets the truth. The place where your mother once walked unseen, and the keys to your bloodline hide beneath the soil." Elena swallowed, the weight of the revelation settling within, mingling dread with a surge of blooming hope. The garden's thorns, once feared as barriers, now hinted at the promise of discovery and the thawing of secrets. Outside, a chill wind swept through the open courtyards, rattling the iron gates and stirring the scent of roses in bloom, a pungent blend of sweetness and sharp tang, the rose garden alive under a silvered sky. Elena's collar necklace swung softly against her chest, brushing against the fabric with a rhythm like a heartbeat, each movement a reminder of the legacy hidden beneath the shadows. Her wary exploration revealed small victories, forgotten letters tucked between books, hushed words exchanged with servants loyal to her family's memory, tiny fragments pieced together like delicate stained glass catching slivers of light. Yet each revelation was met with shadows of fearguards watching, corners turned into traps, the ever-watchful Duke Alaric's influence looming like a sinister cloud. One evening, beneath the solemn gaze of ancient oaks in the rose garden, Elena unearthed a silver locket buried beneath tangled roots, its intricate filigree worn but unmistakably familiar. Opening it, she found faded miniature portraits, her mother and the Emperor's symbols of a love and lineage denied. A sharp sound behind her spun her around. Moonlight glinted off a dagger's blade in the hands of a palace guard. "You should not delve here," hissed a voice dripping with menace, Duke Alaric himself, stepping from the shadows, the malice in his eyes a stark warning. Elena stood firm, her voice a quiet steel. I will uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The two stared, an unseen battle unfolding, a clash of wills that would shape the fate of the kingdom. Alaric's lips curled in a cruel smile. Beware, girl. The Empire's crown is not meant for the unbidden. The garden held its breath, the night thick with tension, a silent witness to Alina's first fight, not with sword or shield, but with courage born of blood and heart. The camera lingered on Alina's face, illuminated by moonlight, her eyes shimmering with both fear and determination. The necklace against her chest caught the silver light, a beacon in the dark. The night whispered of secrets, and Alina, though alone and wary, felt the fragile birth of Hopea's spark that would either ignite a revolution or consume her entirely. And as the scene faded into shadows, the soft rustle of rose petals falling marked the turning of a page, the start of a quest whose end no one yet dared envision. The evening air hung heavy around the palace gardens, a cool mist settling them under the watchful gleam of the moon. Alina navigated the marble pathways with cautious steps, the soft rustle of her modest silk gown blending with the whispering winds. The scent of roses lingered thick, sweet but tinged with thorns, much like the growing tension in her chest. Every glow of moonlight seemed to bathe her in suspicion and fragile hope simultaneously. Her tattered letter, still clenched tightly in her hand, bore weight beyond words, yet it was a silent testimony to the secrets beginning to unravel. She had found an unexpected ally in Prince Edmund, a young noble whose sardonic smile masked depths she could not yet fathom. He had offered help, a hand extended toward uncertain salvation, but one shadowed by the enigmatic flicker in his eyes. "Your necklace," Edmund uttered softly as she cautiously allowed him near, his fingers barely brushing the heirloom that rested against her alabaster skin. "It speaks of truths the court fears to see." Her heart quickened, battling between yearning trust and the hardened suspicion bred from years of concealment. The knowledge that her movements were now entwined with the prince's machinations filled her with both hope and dread. In the dim glow of the rose garden, she discovered a hidden alcove where parchment lay scattered beneath fallen petals, the stolen writings of a loyal servant revealing Duke Alaric's serpent's plot. The revelation was bittersweet. The closer she came to the hidden truth, the more the web of danger tightened. Alina's whispered words cut through the night air. "I must tread carefully. Every step could be my last." That night, her fragile victories came with a cost. Whispers coursed through the palace halls, eyes turned sharply, and silence enveloped the spaces she once traversed with ease. A clandestine meeting with Edmund in a shadowed corridor left her reeling as veiled threats brushed past her like cold wind. "You think you are safer with allies," the prince confessed, eyes gleaming with unspoken conflict, "but trust in this court is currency more deadly than any sword." Alina's gaze sharpened under the flickering torchlight, resolve hardening beneath the scars of betrayal and loss. "Then I will pay that price." Yet doubt gnawed at her, uncertainty clawing through the thin armor of defiance. Was the prince a guardian, or was he weaving her deeper into the dangerous game? The scent of roses, once comforting, now mingled with a sense of impending peril. Her nights grew restless, her dreams painted in hues of shadow and light as memories of her mother's gentle words intertwined with Duke Alaric's cold gazes from council chambers. The necklace resting heavily on her bosom felt both a chain and a key. One fateful twilight in the rose garden, Alina caught a fleeting figure lurking near the palace walls, an assassin's shadow, or perhaps a messenger. The hurried exchange of a folded scroll changed her journey irrevocably. The camera closes on Alina's trembling hands as she unfolds the parchment, eyes wide in the moon's ethereal glow, a chilling decree from Duke Alaric itself, threatening to sever her claim, her truth, her very existence. In the garden's breathless silence, with petals falling softly to the earth red like forbidden love and spilled blood, Alina understood the depths of treachery that surrounded her. But within her, a fierce spark of defiance blazed against the night. The scene fades with her silhouette framed by thorned branches, the moonlight revealing the necklace's secret glimmer, a beacon shining steadily despite the encroaching shadows, promising that the fight to reclaim her identity had only just begun. The candlelight flickered violently as Elena paced the shadowed corridor deep within the palace's heart, her worn necklace heavy against her chest, a subtle reminder of her hidden lineage and the fragile truth it bore. Her raven hair fell like a curtain of night against silken walls, and the rich tapestries that lined the hall whispered secrets she dared not utter aloud. Each step echoed off the marble, a rhythm of dread and steel resolve. The letter from her mother, folded and refolded countless times, was pinned beneath her sleeve, its fragile parchment crisper now carrying more weight than any sword that graced the armory. The rose garden outside lay cloaked in moonlight, its blossoms gleaming like forbidden jewels, echoing the fraught beauty and danger of her existence. She was not alone when a sudden hush befell the court. Even the grand chandeliers seemed to dim in anticipation. From the shadowed alcove emerged Duke Alaric the Serpent, cloaked in refinement, his eyes sharp as daggers, gleaming with cold certainty. His mouth twisted into a merciless smile as he confronted the court, his voice dripping with calculated venom. "Let it be known," he declared, his gaze slicing through the gathered nobles, "that this girl, paraded as a noble's daughter, is nothing but a shadow cast by falsehoods. No blood of the emperor flows through her unworthy veins. Her claim threatens the stability of our realm, and such threat must be extinguished." A shiver ran through the assembly. Murmurs became whispers, whispers became pointed glances. Elena felt the walls close in, the weight of betrayal tightening like iron bands, colder than the marble beneath her feet. She met the emperor's gaze across the room, searching desperately for a flicker of recognition, a spark of validation. For a moment, his eyes caught hers, a silent clash of emotions that tangled in the dim light, a fleeting flicker she dared to grasp. Summoning her courage, Elena stepped forward, voice trembling but rising, a declaration entwined with vulnerability and newfound strength. "My birthright is truth," she declared, "hidden to protect me, but no less real. I stand before you, not with falsehood, but with the blood of my mother and the hopes of a kingdom betrayed." Duke Alaric's smile sharpened into a sneer. "Proof? Or more dreams?" Elena's fingers tightened around the necklace, its worn surface now a beacon in the moonlight. From beneath her cloak, she drew forth the cryptic letter she had found earlier, a document sealed with the emperor's own sigil, long concealed, exposing the depth of deception wrought against her. The court fell into a deafening silence as the seal broke and the letter unfolded. The words inside sang of hidden love, perilous secrets, and a plan that had sought to erase her existence. Eyes widened, breaths held in suspended disbelief. Duke Alaric's composure wavered, fissures showing in the mask of power he wore so well. Accusations faltered beneath the weight of undeniable truth, and the emperor's expression shifted, recognition softened into anguish and remorse. The rose garden outside bloomed beneath the silver glow, its petals unfurling like the truths laid bare within those ancient walls. Elena's claim, once whispered and denied, now resonated like the first light breaking the long night. As the council grappled with the revelations, the camera lingered on Elena's face, resolute, vulnerable, ascending from shadows into the fierce light of justice and hope. The scene closed with the moon's soft embrace illuminating her necklace, a silent promise glinting against the darkness, a herald of transformation and the storm yet to come. The rain had begun without warning, a cold, merciless cascade that plastered Elena's raven hair against her pale face. She crouched beneath the jagged stones of the castle's outer wall, the torrential downpour drowning out the distant echoes of torches flickering along the battlements. Her breath came in shallow, uneven gasps, each inhalation drawn through chilled lungs that ached with despair. Darkness pressed against her like a suffocating shroud, broken only by the intermittent gleam of moonlight that filtered through the storm clouds. The cold stone beneath her pressed into her torn cloak, the coarse fabric soaked and weighty against her skin. In her hand, the worn necklace hung limply, its heavy pendant lost amongst the gloom, a secret tether she no longer felt the strength to hold. The wind howled through the shattered remains of the once majestic palace garden, where the roses had withered under the weight of betrayal and neglect. She could scarcely remember their fragrance amidst the chill. The forbidden love they symbolized now seemed like a distant dream, suffocated beneath the poison of deceit. Her allies, those few flickers of light she'd clung to, had all vanished like shadows at dawn. Trusted faces twisted into masks of disdain or cold indifference. The court, once a place of whispered hope, had turned into a labyrinth of treachery and isolation. Duke Alaric's influence wove through its halls like a dark venom, poisoning loyalties, sowing distrust. Alina's heart, once beating with fervent hope, now thudded in slow, mournful rhythm, a dirge for identity lost and futures stolen. The piercing sting of abandonment bore down, deeper than any wound, leaving rawness where certainty once lived. She thought of the emperor her father, whose fleeting glance at the banquet had sparked a fragile hope. But that glimpse had been swallowed by silence and derision, a flicker drowned before it grew. Her eyes, glassy with tears she refused to shed, fixed on the distant horizon where thunder grumbled low, a promise of the tempest within and without. The world beyond her narrow refuge blurred and darkened, the rain's relentless drumming a cruel metronome marking the unraveling of everything she held dear: love, legitimacy, purpose. Her voice, a fragile whisper against the roar of the storm, barely broke the silence. Where does hope hide when all is lost? The wind carried her words away, as cold and empty as the place she now occupied, a shadow cast out, a secret buried deeper than any might recover. The camera pulled back slowly, revealing Alina alone beneath the battered stone, surrounded by darkness and rain, the necklace's glint fading into the night, a solitary beacon in a sea of despair. The scene closed on the hollow ache beneath the tempest's fury, the unmistakable sense that the ground beneath her world was crumbling, and the descent into darkness was irreversible. The damp chill of the dungeon seeped into Alina's bones, wrapping around her like the cold stone that enclosed her. The faint glow of torchlight flickered across the damp walls, throwing grotesque shadows that danced and writhed, mirroring the turmoil within her soul. Her breath came in shallow, uneven gasps, echoing eerily in the oppressive silence, loud against the void she now inhabited. She sat curled against the rough wall, the coarse collar of her worn cloak scratched mercilessly at her pale skin. The simple necklace resting at her throat felt heavier than ever, a cold weight tethering her to a past she was beginning to doubt. The secret it held, the hidden lineage, seemed to mock her helplessness. Outside, the night was an impenetrable darkness, the windowless cell cutting her off from the moonlight's truth-revealing glow. The world beyond was soundless save for distant, muffled clanks and the drip of water falling rhythmically somewhere deeper in the castle's bowels. Her mind wandered through fractured memories, the heated accusations at the banquet, faces twisted in scorn, the coldness of the emperor's gaze as it flickered upon her only briefly, and then fled. The garden where forbidden roses bloomed beneath the moon's soft watch, now nothing but a fading fantasy, a cruel mirage slipping away like the fragile hope that had once danced in her heart. Alina closed her eyes, pressing her palms into the cold stone, feeling the rough grain imprint painfully on her skin. Her thoughts were a tangled web of despair, betrayal by those she trusted, abandonment on a throne she barely dared dream to claim. The room around her seemed to contract, suffocating, a cage for a soul unraveling. A glimmer caught her eye, an old, rusted nail protruding from the wall, barely visible in the quivering torchlight. She reached toward it, her hand trembling, the calloused fingers of desperation grasping for something tangible amid the void. When her fingers touched the cold metal, the faintest pulse of life surged within her, echo of a promise, the delicate thread connecting her still to hope. The silence pressed harder, making every heartbeat a thunderclap in the vast emptiness. Her breath slowed, the rawness of grief settling over her like a shroud. The necklace hung motionless, a spectral witness to her isolation and desolation. For a long time, the only sound was the dripping of water, time bleeding away as the world narrowed to the bleak confines of her prison and the heavy stillness enveloping her spirit. Alina's weary whisper broke the hush, fragile and bare. "Is this the end?" The darkness offered no answer, only the cold comfort of endless night. As the camera pulled back, her small figure sat alone beneath the flickering torchlight, swallowed by shadow and silence, poised on the precipice of surrender. The scene closed on the haunted glint of her necklace, faintly catching the dying light, a last fragile thread between despair and the faintest dawn. The shadows ahead were thick and suffocating, but within the dank confines of the cold dungeon, a flicker of light broke through the gloom. Alina's fingers brushed against the rough stone wall, tracing the uneven edges as silence wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. Her breath was shallow, each inhale a fragile thread binding her to the world outside the darkness. Beneath the muted glow of a distant torch, the worn necklace she clutched against her chest pulsed softly, an unyielding heartbeat amidst the stillness. The secret it held whispered through the silence, a ghost of hope concealed beneath layers of fear and doubt. Her companion, a fellow prisoner whose face was more shadow than flesh, leaned close, voice a low croon of survival and hidden paths. "There is a way," the prisoner murmured, eyes gleaming with a reckless spark. "A passage forgotten by the careless, hidden beneath the roots of the rose garden, where no one dares to tread." Alina's gaze lifted, catching the glint of moonlight filtering through damp bars, bathing the chamber in cold silver. The rose garden, once a place of refuge and forbidden beauty, now lay just beyond, a sanctuary veiled in thorn and secrecy. Its symbolism, woven through her past, her pain, and her love, seemed to call her toward renewal. A tear traced a silent path down Alina's pale cheek. Despair had gripped her heart like a relentless winter frost, but this whisper of escape, of hidden truth waiting to be unveiled, kindled a flicker fragile, yet undeniable. The burden of exile might yet give way to the first breath of freedom. She nodded, voice barely more than a prayer, "Show me the way." Together, they rose, the clinking of chains a solemn rhythm against the slow stirring of hope. Alina's steps, though tentative, carried the weight of a burgeoning resolve. As they moved toward the faint shadows beyond, the battered pendant at her neck caught the light, a beacon in the darkness, a promise of dawn. Outside the cell, the silence deepened, enfolding the secret passage in its embrace. The camera lingered on the delicate hand of Alina pressing against the time-worn stone, the gateway to a future uncertain but alive with possibility. The scene closed with a slow, swelling surge of orchestrated strings, the music's crescendo weaving with the soft rustle of rose petals, unseen but deeply felt. Within the abyss, Alina found the faintest spark, a silent decision, a fragile vow that would carry her from despair into the light of courage and confrontation yet to come. The chamber was cloaked in shadows, the only light a faint glow flickering from a single candle that cast dancing silhouettes against the stone walls. Alina stood motionless at its edge, her face trembling with a mixture of exhaustion and tentative hope. Her raven hair fell in tangled waves over her shoulders, framing her alabaster skin and deep, searching eyes. The oppressive silence was broken only by the distant echo of footsteps in the labyrinthine halls beyond, echoing the tremor of doubt within her. In her trembling hand, she clutched the worn, embroidered edge of a letter, her last, fragile link to the truth. The words spoken aloud in her mind fluttered like fragile wings. "There is still a part of me that can rise. There is still a voice waiting to be heard." Her breath hitched as she looked down at her simple gown, the fabric worn and faded, yet the core of her spirit shimmered despite the darkness that threatened to drown her. The necklace around her neck, a silent heirloom holding secrets too heavy to speak, caught the candle's flicker, casting a delicate glint that seemed to pulse with the promise of rebirth. The air thickened with memories, her father's frown at her humble origins, Alaric's sneer of disgust, the whispers behind gilded gates about her unworthiness. Yet beneath it all, a tiny ember of defiance ignited an echo of her mother's words, a heartbeat waiting to resound. Summoning her courage, Alina moved toward an ancient chest tucked in the corner, its surface carved with symbols of love and destiny. The lid protested briefly under her trembling hands but finally gave way, revealing a tattered cloak, a silver dagger, and a faded tapestry, remnants of a hidden life, fragments of a truth she was now determined to reclaim. As she grasped the tapestry, her eyes fell upon the moonlit window, a sliver of silver bleeding into the darkness, illuminating a rose shrub that edged the courtyard. The blossom was half in bloom, its petals delicate yet resilient, symbolic of her own fragile strength and forbidden love. She clenched her fist around the fabric, feeling the rough texture against her palm, anchoring her to a resolve that refused to falter. A sudden gust of wind rattled the shutters, and she shivered, but not from cold. Her gaze lingered on the moon's silvery glow, and a quiet realization settled in. The time for silence, shame, and hiding had passed. The faint hope kindling within her now threatened to blaze into a rallying flame. Behind her, a soft heartbeat of hope stirred, the whisper of her mother's voice echoing through her memory, urging her to seek the truth, to fight for her destiny, to be the echo of love unburdened by shadows. With a steadying breath, Elena stepped toward the door, her silhouette merging with the darkness, yet her eyes shone with the first sparks of an awakening. Outside, the night awaited her, each step a step toward awakening a dormant truth buried beneath years of treachery. The scene lingered on her figure, framed by the moonlight, an image suspended on the threshold of change, fragile but fierce, a promise whispering in the silence. The grand hall pulsed with silent anticipation as Elena burst through the heavy oak doors, her presence a force that cut through the murmuring whispers and hushed gasps. Every eye turned, stunned, into silence, as she advanced toward the platform with renewed purpose. Her humble gown was now a banner of defiance, its fabric cloaked her figure with unshakable resolve, a stark contrast to the trembling doubt that once shadowed her. The flickering torches cast a dim, shifting glow upon her face, illuminating the streaks of rain that clung to her dark hair, remnants of her escape from the dungeon, now symbols of her resilience. Her eyes shone with a fiery conviction, the depths of her pain transformed into the luminous clarity of a leader. Every step she took was a declaration: her truth, her love, her right to be seen. Before the assembled court, Elena stood tall, her voice rising like an unstoppable tide. "My blood is noble, my heart pure, and my claim just. I am the daughter of the Emperor, born of love and necessity. This necklace, my curse and my crown, binds me to my destined truth." The murmurs grew shocked whispers of disbelief, awe, and fear. The courtiers recoiled, the weight of her words threatening the fragile balance of power. Yet Elena's gaze did not falter. She unlocked her grip on the worn family pendant, revealing the family crest beneath her modest gown to the gasping court. The symbol, forged in secret, now shone as a beacon of undeniable legitimacy. From the shadows stepped a young page, trembling but relentless. Carefully, he presented a sealed scroll, the authentic signature of the Emperor himself, confirming Elena's lineage with unassailable authority. Her voice quivered briefly as she laid the evidence before the court, a fragile yet formidable shield against Alaric's burgeoning lies. A hush fell, almost sacred in its silence, as the truth unfurled, an untainted thread woven into the tapestry of power and love. Light seemed to pierce the darkness, revealing from beneath the clouds a golden ray that fluttered through the stained glass, illuminating Elena's face like the dawn of a new day. She watched the shock ripple through the court's hierarchy, the tension palpable as even Alaric's smile faltered. Her heart pounded not with fear, but with the rhythms of liberation, the true beginning of her rightful place. The scene lingered on her figure, a silhouette of fierce hope against a backdrop of shifting shadows, before dissolving into a sweeping shot of her standing at the crest of her destiny. The air shimmered with possibilities, the night whispering of a legacy reclaimed, and Elena, at last, saw herself not as the shadow of doubt but as the luminous dawn of her own truth. The grand hall of the palace was bathed in an unearthly radiance, the kind that seemed to pierce through centuries of shadows and deceit. Elena stepped onto the marble platform, her silhouette a figure of unwavering resolve. Her humble gown shimmered faintly under the rising sunlight streaming through stained glass, every crystal casting a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across her features, symbolic of the truth finally breaking free. The court fell silent as all eyes turned, hushed in anticipation, when Elena lifted her hand slowly, holding aloft the sealed decree, the undeniable proof of her lineage. Her voice, now calm yet compelling, cut through the whispers like a blade of truth. My claim is not born from ambition but from the love of my mother, hidden by shadows but never extinguished. A collective gasp rippled through the assembly, the weight of this claim pressing upon the palace's ancient stones, the history they had all buried threatening to collapse under the weight of revelation. The emperor's gaze fixed on her, a flicker of recognition and pain passing fleetingly across his venerable face. Elena's eyes searched his for the smallest sign of acceptance, a spark of kinship that could ignite a new dawn. Duke Alaric's sneer faded, replaced by a cold, calculating silence. The court was caught between doubt and revelation, tradition and transformation. Elena's hands trembled only slightly as she unfurled the ancient scroll, her mother's seal intact, her words echoing her rightful truth. A hushed collective breathing, a moment suspended in eternity, when the emperor finally stepped forward. His voice, gentle yet profound, resonated through the chamber. Elena, my daughter, your courage has shattered chains forged in secrecy and lies. Today, the truth rises like the dawn after endless night. The court's gaze shifted, many questioning, some in awe, others in fear, but all witnessing the birth of a new era. Elena felt a warmth bloom within her, an unbreakable light that replaced the dark despair she had once carried. Her shoulders straightened, her heart swelled with the quiet strength that had grown from suffering. Every motif, moonlit shadows, the worn necklace, and the rose garden seemed to converge in that radiant moment, sealing her inner rebirth and the unbreakable bond of love and legacy restored. She stood poised at the edge of her destiny, calm, unshakable, and ready to meet the dawn of her true inheritance. The camera slowly pulled back, capturing her silhouette against the rising Sunan image of hope, power, and love reborn in the heart of the kingdom. The dusk sky was painted in hues of soft lavender and amber, the first gentle glow of twilight settling over the opulent courtyard. Elena moved slowly along the marble colonnade, her footsteps quiet and deliberate, each step a whisper of peace after tumult. Her gown, simple yet elegant, swayed with a gentle grace, its fabric catching the fading light in a shimmer that mirrored her newfound serenity. Her hands trembled slightly, not from uncertainty, but from the quiet strength that had blossomed within her in the moments after the storm. The heavy necklace that once symbolized her hidden truth now rested lightly against her collarbone, a delicate reminder of the journey from shadow to light. The rose garden bloomed softly behind her, the fragrance a faint, sweet echo of forbidden love now transformed into a symbol of hope and renewal. Elena paused beneath an ancient oak, its gnarled branches stretching outward like protective arms. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, allowing the scents of dusk and roses to seep into her soul. She knew her identity, once concealed, now revealed, had been a secret buried deep beneath layers of doubt and fear. Yet, today, it was a cornerstone of her existence. The whispers of her past, the accusations, the betrayal, the pain had dissolved in the gentle embrace of the evening. A tender smile played upon her lips as she reached out and lightly touched the petal of a nearby rose, its delicate beauty a testament to her resilience. The moon's silver light kissed her hair, casting a luminous glow that wrapped her in a dreamlike aura. She felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet symphony of forgiveness for herself and gratitude for the long, winding path she'd traveled. In this moment of stillness, Elena understood that love, true and unshakable, thrived not in the shadows but in unwavering acceptance. Choosing love over power, she had reclaimed her story. Her heart was no longer a prison but a sanctuary, an unbreakable sanctuary where her soul could finally breathe. The camera drew back slowly, capturing her silhouette against the softly lit sky, a timeless image of hope and healing. Her gaze lifted to the stars emerging faintly in the twilight, and a gentle tear traced a silent path down her cheek, blending seamlessly into the glow of the horizon. The world around her rested in a fragile calm, the moon's silver gaze a witness to the peace she had found, a peace that promised to endure, woven into the fabric of her renewed being. Under a sky painted with the soft hues of dawn, Elena stood at the edge of the palace garden, her gaze lost in the infinite stretch of the horizon where light and shadow mingled in a delicate dance. The air was crisp, carrying whispers of new beginnings, yet her heart was calm now, filled with a quiet understanding that silence often bears the deepest truths. She traced her fingers over the ancient stone bench, the worn surface a quiet testament to the years of suffering, waiting, and ultimately, healing. Her soul, once shattered by deception and betrayal, now shimmered with a soft, resilient light flickering like the dawn's first rays peeking through laced clouds. Behind her, the rose garden bloomed with unspoken hope, the rich reds and delicate pinks whispering stories of forbidden love and impossible dreams. The wild scent of roses mixed with the crisp morning air, a fragrant reminder that beauty often flourishes in darkness, that the deepest truths are concealed beneath layers of pain. Elena's eyes brushed over the family's crest woven into the fabric of her simple gown, a symbol of her true heritage, now reclaimed from shadows. The worn necklace, her silent talisman, rested lightly against her collarbone, a heartbeat of divine inheritance wrapped in humility. Her fingertips grazed the heirloom, feeling the faint tremor of hope that had survived through years of doubt. She lifted her head, breathing deeply, as the sun breached the horizon, casting golden light across her features. Her face, once marked by fear and shame, now radiated a gentle peace, a silent testament to the transformative power of truth amid the ruins. In that moment of reflection, Elena gently clasped her hands over her heart, the silence between her and the vast world holding a sacred kind of sacredness blessed with forgiveness, understanding, and the unbreakable bond of love. For love, she realized, was no longer a fragile wish, but a steadfast force that guided her through darkness. The camera slowly pulled back, capturing her silhouette against the awakening sky, a figure of grace and quiet strength, forever changed but unbowed. The scene lingered on this profound stillness, her eyes closing softly, a peaceful smile touching her lips as the rising sun bathed her in radiant light, sealing her journey from shadows into the dawn of true self, hope, and love. Under a sky brushed with the soft, lingering hues of twilight, Elena stood alone atop the grand terrace, gazing outward over the kingdom she finally belonged to, not as a secret daughter cloaked in shadows, but as a woman reborn into her rightful place. The palace was serene, bathed in the gentle glow of the moon, its silver light casting calm shadows that danced across marble statues and vine-wrapped pillars. Her gown, simple yet regal, moved softly with the breezy extension of her newfound grace. Her eyes, deep as the dusk, captured the quiet miracle of peace, one that had emerged from chaos, from despair, from the revelation of her true self. The worn necklace glistened faintly beneath the delicate fabric as a silent testament to her journey, symbolic of hidden truths uncovered and love reclaimed. She lifted her hand, tracing the outline of the necklace, feeling the cool metal against her skin, a heartbeat echoing in her becoming. In that introspective silence, Elena's soul pulsed with a gentle, unshakable serenity. Her journey, woven with shadows and light, betrayal and forgiveness, had led her to this moment of luminous clarity. The rose garden at the palace entrance awoke to faint fragrances, echoing the forbidden love she had fought so fiercely to preserve, proof that beauty can flourish even in the harshest soils. She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the soft whisper of the wind, nature's quiet hymn of peace, a lullaby for a spirit finally at rest. Her fingers lingered on the pendant, a delicate caress that sealed her vow. Love and truth are not burdens, but the essence of a life truly lived. Turning gently, she looked toward the horizon, where the first hints of dawn painted the sky in shades of gold and violet. The entire kingdom lay silent, awaiting the dawn not just of a new day, but of a new era forged by her courage. Her silhouette, regal and resolute, framed by the blossoming roses and the luminous moon, embodied hope, acceptance, and the unbreakable power of love. A final, tender breath drew her into the fullness of peace, the slow, sacred acknowledgement that her story, once hidden in shadows, now shone in the light of her own truth. In this moment, she was not merely a princess, but a symbol of resilience and love, an enduring presence beneath the vast, eternal sky. The camera pulled back gradually, capturing the sweeping view of the kingdom bathed in dawn's first glow, a visual metaphor for hope and renewal. Alina's quiet figure remained a symbol of the soul's quiet victory, the gentle embrace of peace lingering in the dawn's soft light, forever etched in the memory of the land she now called home. What if a simple piece of jewelry uncovered your true legacy? Reflect below.